Hello, everyone, and welcome by Bags. I'll be your reviewer. I'm Lonnie from Horror Heaven77, and when I first came up with the idea of this for the theme week for this month, which we would all pick like our guilty pleasures, this one was my very first choice. But then I decided, you know what, I got something else I think I can do that's going to work a little bit better. So, but I still wanted to review this movie because this is a movie that I always loved this movie. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you already know by the title. The movie I'm talking about is from 1982, written and directed by the late, great Wes Craven. May he rest in peace. We're talking about Swamp Thing. Okay. Now, I always had a love for this movie, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to review this movie was because I had seen a number of YouTube channels that when they review this movie, they kind of just tend to bash and kind of make fun of it and everything else. And I honestly really don't know why. I always loved this movie. I saw it when I was real little. This is the first Wes Craven movie I ever saw. This immediately made me a fan of him as a director. It made me a fan of, it was like the first Adrienne Barbeau movie I'd ever seen, made me a fan of her as an actress, made me a fan of Ray Wise as an actor. Just to me, this movie was a lot of fun, and I watched this movie so many times when I was a kid, and I just really enjoyed it. Now, I mean, granted, I'm gonna level with you all. I've never read the comic books. I haven't seen the TV series or anything. I haven't seen, I think I saw snippets of the one from the late 80s, early 90s. Don't bring your evil here, stuff like that. But the new one that had Derek Mears playing Swamp Thing, unfortunately, I'd never seen that one either. I did see the sequel, Return of Swamp Thing, with Heather Locklear. I saw that one, and I really wasn't a very big fan of that one. But anyway, also too, it's like I really just don't understand all the hate that this movie gets. I really don't get it. It's like also too, if you get this version, the Scream Factory version, you get the commentary, you get interviews with Adrienne Barbeau, and you tend to understand. It's like this movie was supposed to be so much more. It was supposed to be so much better. According to Adrienne Barbeau, like the original script that Wes Craven wrote was supposed to be absolutely amazing. It was supposed to be way better than what we got. And I really would have loved to have seen what that would have been like, because to me, this was fantastic as it is. I think Craven made a good movie, even though over time he probably decided he didn't. And, a lot of other people said they decided that he didn't make a good movie. But it kind of seems like nowadays, I don't know, just to me personally, seems like a lot of people, when it comes to Wes Craven, it seems like a lot of people say like, oh, the only two good movies he ever made was Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street. No, I think he made some other pretty sweet movies in my opinion. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But also too, you also got, Louis Jourdan as Dr. Arcane in this movie, and like he's great. The guy was just, he was such a great actor. He commanded the screen in every scene he was in, and like to me he was like the best perfect villain, and just awesome. I really loved his performance as Arcane in this movie. You got Nicholas Worth and from Don't Answer the Phone and Darkman and all that. You got him in here. You got David Hess. It's like, and that's another thing too that always bothered me, is because like David Hess gives such a good performance, even though he's playing one of the bad guys. David Hess gives such a good performance in this movie. Like he is so, oh man, it just really bugs me that he never broke out bigger as an actor, and that usually like the only roles he was ever given to play was usually like the lunatic rapist. So anyway, I keep getting off track. Let's talk about the movie for a change. The movie, you start off, you're in the swamps, and you're introduced to the character of Alex Cable, played by Adrienne Barbeau, and she's an agent. She's assigned to protect Dr. Alec Holland, played by Ray Wise, and the thing is like Dr. Holland and his sister Linda, they're working on a scientific discovery that's basically is going to end world hunger. It's going to it's going to save so many people. It's going to keep people from starving, and it's going to really benefit mankind. And so, but it turns out that there are spies and that there are people trying to get a hold of his formula for other things, and specifically Dr. Arcane, played by Louis Jourdan. And so there's a man named Ritter who is, running around raising hell, hollering, and all this kind of stuff. And, and so she goes in, and the thing is like, at the beginning of the movie, she's very much a fish out of water. And she goes in and she meets Alec and his sister Linda. And so he's like, I need this plant or something like that for the formula that we're working on. So they go out into the swamps, and she's pretty much, she's just constantly complaining about, she hates being in the swamps and everything. And then Alec is like trying to get her to see, like the beauty of the swamps and nature. And, it's like, I think nowadays, Alec Holland would be what we would kind of call like a tree hugger. He's, he's very much, like in tune with nature, and he's trying to show her like, all the beauty and the benefits of the swamp and what it has to offer, and what nature has to offer, and trying to get her to see it through different eyes. Well, they find out that, somebody's been messing around their camp, and that, their sensors have been broken, so they get back, and then they find out that, it's just, right at the time they get back and they find out that basically that, they perfected the formula, and it's perfect. It's going to work. It's going to save everybody. It's going to end world hunger. People will have food for, generations to come, and everything's going to work out great and all this kind of stuff. And then the bad guys attack. And this guy that we think is Ritter is actually Dr. Arcane. He's wearing a mask the whole time. It's kind of like a Scooby-Doo reveal. He pulls it off and everything. And that's another reason why I like this movie. This movie's a lot of fun. It's kind of cartoony. I'll get to that in a minute. But so then we reveal that, that it's actually Dr. Arcane, and that he's, the bad guy, and he plans to take, Alec Holland's notes, and he plans to take the formula and everything else. And so, Linda, being brave, she tries to fight back, and she gets killed. And Alec, of course, is devastated. And Alex, meanwhile, they knock her out. But she's able to find his notebook, and she's keeping it safe so that they can't get to it, because they need it. Basically, it's like his last notebook, and it's like they need that last notebook to complete his formula so that they can take it for themselves. But she's got the last notebook, and so she's hiding it and stuff. So anyway, they're getting ready to kill Alec, and he decides he's going to fight back, and so he gets knocked on the floor. He's holding. He's holding like a jar of the formula in his hand. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time talking today, aren't I? He's holding a jar of the formula in his hands, and so they knock him over, and it gets spilled on me. It blows up, and this great fire stunt scene. He runs out, and he goes and he jumps into the swamp. So basically, the next morning, they're trying to find. They're trying to find the last notebook, and they're going around trying to clean up the mess and try to make it look like nothing happened, so that they could cover the whole thing up. And you got Ferret, played by David Hess, and Bruno, played by Nicholas Worth. They're pretty much Arcane's two main right-hand men. They're trying to find the notebook. Well, they come across Alex. She's trying to get away and trying to get to safety and get the notebook into the hands of the right people. And so they catch her, and then they take her out to the swamp, and they throw her overboard into the water, and they try to drown her. And then we get the reveal of Swamp Thing. Alec Holland is now Swamp Thing. And so they try to shoot him. It turns out he's impenetrable to bullets, and it's hard to stop him. And then you get some great action scenes. At least I thought they were great. I know a lot of people probably be like, well, nowadays they wouldn't hold up, but I don't know. To me, they were still really cool action scenes. And then, of course, at first, Alex, he saves Alex, but of course, at first, she's terrified of him, and she, she basically just wants him to get away from her, and she's still trying to get away. She's unaware, though, that this guy who was supposed to be Ritter was actually Dr. Arcane. And so she gets to a gas station, and there's a young boy there named Jude, who and he's there to be kind of like Alex's sidekick and kind of her. He's kind of the comic relief and everything else. Um, she asks if she can use the phone, and so she goes in, she calls, and then Arcane picks up the phone, and then she's all like, he's all like, yeah, did you manage to save anything? And she's like, yeah, I got the last notebook. He's like, we're on our way. And so you know so her and Jude, they kind of have to team up, and um, then like they come, and then she finds out about Ritter being dead, and that Arcane has really been Ritter this whole time, and so they're trying to get her, they're trying to get the notebook, and of course Swamp Thing, he keeps showing up and saving her, and trying to get her to safety and everything else. But she does finally realize that he is Alec Holland, and so eventually it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this so I don't keep giving away too much of the plot for those who haven't seen it. But eventually she does get captured, and Swamp Thing, he gets his arm cut off, but now because his molecules and everything are now plant based, he realizes like if he reaches up and holds his hand into the sun, he'll get his arm to grow back. But eventually, we do come to the part where they get captured, and Arcane, he does get his hands on the formula and decides. At first, he tests it on Bruno, and you get this very kind of horrifying scene, and you know, yeah, almost kind of like you watch this movie. It's like, is this really meant for kids to be watching? It's a DC movie and all that, but it's like kind of a little horrific in some parts. Like, should kids really be watching this thing? But anyway, so he gives it to Bruno. Bruno turns into this kind of um, short person, kind of monster mutation, but Arcane decides to hell with it. I'm gonna take the formula myself. And then there's a really scary, horrifying scene where Arcane is being transformed into this monster. And then at one point earlier in the movie, he talks to Swamp Thing, and he's like, why was it? How come Bruno doesn't have your strength? How come he doesn't have your size? What's wrong with it? And Alec explains to him this, like, what the formula does is it turns you into, it makes you a more advanced version of what you really are, And so he's like, oh, okay. So Bruno's essence was stupidity and timidity and things, and that's why it just made him more amplified. And you got Arcane, who basically is a total sociopath narcissist. He decides, he in his mind he's a genius, and he's just amazing and fantastic and everything else. But when he takes it, he transforms into this really grotesque monster. And so Alec is able to break him and Alex out of there, and they try to get out. Then you have a big showdown with the Arcane monster, and and pretty much I think that's where I'm going to stop it right there. But anyway, though, I think this movie it's really underrated. I think this movie is a lot of fun. I really don't understand all the hate it gets. Sure, I can understand like some of the special effects may not hold up as well as it does, or as it did. But honestly, it's like this movie is. I think this movie is so underrated. It really is. You got Harry Manfredini doing the music score on it. He came up with a great theme for it. The acting is really great. Louise Jourdan just commands every scene he's in. Adrienne Barbeau, she's fantastic. She does have moments where, she gets to be the strong woman, and she does get to fight back and defend herself. But still, it is a comic book movie, and a lot of it is her character, for the most part, is kind of reduced to be this, kind of damsel in distress. So unfortunately, you kind of got that. But credit to Wes Craven, he does have good moments for the female characters in this movie. The fact that Linda, dies in an act of bravery to try to save her brother and to, prevent Arcane from getting the formula. That shows great, great character on her part. And like I said, Alex does a really fantastic. She fights back when and where she can. It's just, and I think personally, what ended up happening was the fact that Craven wrote in the story that a lot of the times it's just, she's outnumbered, and that, she's overpowered. It's just, the situation just commands it. It's like she's just in this situation where she can't really fight back. So Swamp Thing does have to come and save her. So I think that was kind of a good thing on his part at writing the script. But Adrienne Barbeau, she's fantastic. She's incredibly likable. She has he gives her some great lines. She does get some great quips in this movie. She gets some good one-liners and things like that. And just, she's an overall wonderful female character, and you really care about her. You want to see her survive. Ray Wise did a great job as Alec Holland. I think he was very likable. He's very sympathetic. You believed him when he talked about how much, nature meant to him, and he really believed in what he was doing, trying to, save people from starving to death and things like that. And he made a very likable, interesting character. And then Dick Durock, when he played Swamp Thing, I think for a guy who was buried in a rubber suit, which, they did say, like, a lot of the time they had so much trouble on the set because they were really shooting in the swamps and stuff like that. And, like, the water was, like, eating away at the rubber suit and stuff. But, he does a great performance as Swamp Thing. He really does command, oh man, he gives such a wonderful, sympathetic performance. And like when he's like in the scenes when he's first revealed and he's rejected by Alex, you could see, the hurt on him. You could see the pain he really does emote very well. And he does give a great delivery, in his lines and things like that. And the thing is like, even though like Nicholas Worth and David Hess, like both of these guys were just meant to be kind of like just like the stupid henchmen who just basically do what their boss tells them to do. Both of them really bring something to their roles. They really, they make standout characters. Like I said earlier in the review, I think David Hess does a great job. Like I said, it's just unfortunate. I mean, he has such a commanding presence to him. It's just unfortunate. Like we never got to see him do more like, lead roles and things like that. Nicholas Worth gives a good performance. Everything in this movie, in my opinion, this movie works. And I know there are probably people like, oh my God, and in the final third act, basically, is two guys in rubber monster suits fighting. It's all like, okay. I mean, I guess maybe because, this is 1982, we already had Star Wars and we already had Alien and we already had, Empire Strikes Back. I guess maybe the idea was because, like after these kind of movies, seeing the advances being done with special effects, maybe everybody just thought that like, well, now we have all this kind of good special effects and it's going even further and all that kind of stuff. And now we got two guys in rubber monster suits fighting. It's like, I don't know. I think if you were a fan of the, the early Godzilla movies, I don't see why you'd have a problem with that. But the action scenes I think are well staged. Even though the third act, they said that the fight scene they kind of really were rushed, and Craven had to do with a lot of studio interference, which sounds like a lot of these comic book movies being made today. So it's like, okay, so they were doing that crap even back in the 80s. So they were cutting his budget, and there was a lot of studio interference and things like that. So he had to kind of just do basically not get all the coverage and shoot it the way he wanted it. So a lot of it is like a lot of close-ups and a lot of wide shots. But even still, I think, considering what he had to work with, I think Wes Craven made a really good movie, a fun movie, an entertaining movie. And personally, like this movie is just a lot of fun. It's cartoony in some ways, but, it is a comic book movie. So, I mean, what do you kind of expect, But clearly this was Wes Craven's attempt at trying to make a movie that was going to pretty much like move him away from horror. I don't know about entirely, but move him away from horror and start working him into more mainstream movies. And but at the same time, there's enough elements in here to for Craven to really keep his horror audience hooked into it. There's some gruesome scenes in here. But anyway, I think I've talked long enough about this movie. I'm sorry for all the stuttering and rambling and everything else. Just trying to get my thoughts straight. But I really enjoy this movie. This movie is a lot of fun. I really hold a soft spot for this movie in my heart. Like I said, this was the first Wes Craven movie I ever saw. It made me a fan of him as a writer-director instantly. It made me a fan of Ray Wise, made me a fan of David Hess, made me a fan of Louis Jourdan, made me a fan of Nicholas Worth, Adrienne Barbeau and everything. And I just really enjoy this movie. And so anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. So Oh my God, hitting on 20 minutes already. So sorry everybody that the video ran so long, but anyway, that's going to do it. So if anybody took the time to watch this video, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave it a like. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I'm the Friday reviewer. We have different guys. Everybody's doing great stuff. And, we got theme weeks. We got our label week coming up next week. So be sure to check in for that. And that's it. Everybody, have a good night. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.